Today we're tackling a topic that sometimes healthcare professionals call compassion fatigue. Who out there has heard compassion fatigue? Maybe you feel that you have had it. Compassion fatigue is a term we use to talk about how connecting to the need or the pain or the struggle of another person can actually kind of weigh you down. How over time, if you don't find a way to process the stress or the difficulty of another person, that you end up becoming more burnt out because of your feelings of sympathy and empathy. How the struggles of other people can actually make it difficult for you to be able to have the energy to be yourself. We can become beleaguered, we can become exhausted if we take in too many of other people's emotions and feel them without having an effective way to process those emotions. Like any emotion, the borrowed emotions of others can be very useful. They can inform and enrich our lives if we deal with them well. So today we're looking at a trio of emotions: empathy, sympathy, and compassion. We're going to talk about our relationship with these three emotions. If you're new to Wild and Brave, we love that you are here. Welcome. We're focusing on emotional vibrance. Our hashtag is Be Vibrant. We're really leaning into the value and information that all of our emotions can bring to enrich our lives. So we're going to focus on how do you recover? How do you recover from this concept of compassion fatigue? Now, we talk about these three emotions together: sympathy, empathy, and compassion, because they're all pieces of this puzzle. Now, sympathy, this is where you're feeling the feelings of others as your own. Who has felt sympathy? You see something happen to someone, you go, oh, that happened to me last year. That was just the worst. Or someone gets a ticket, you see them getting pulled over, and instead of feeling excited that the police got them because they were speeding, you go, ooh, and you feel in your gut what you felt the last time you got a speeding ticket. That's sympathy. You may even, for the things that you haven't experienced, think to yourself, how would I feel if I was in this person's place? The byproduct of sympathy is a full emotional reaction of your own. You are entering into their feelings, and because that emotion is borrowed, it's showing up in your life as a guest. It's not prompted by your own life, it's theirs. It can bring along or trigger you to deal with moldy emotions from your past. If I never processed the pain or the embarrassment or whatever around my speeding ticket, and my best friend is telling me she just got a $250 speeding ticket, she doesn't know how she's going to pay, I may deal with a sudden revisitation of the moldy emotions I might have over my ticket that I didn't have the money to pay when I got it back in college, right? It can trigger you to deal with things from your past, or maybe just add on to your emotional processing load, so you just have more emotions to deal with now. Someone you care about or someone you're working with is dealing with this thing, and now you're dealing with it too. All right, that's sympathy. You're in it with them. Empathy doesn't require that you identify with or imagine how you would feel. So empathy can exist in the space of not putting yourself in the story. But what it does is it takes the feeling and it mixes it with understanding. It's a way of seeing the implications of someone's experience and imagining the feelings, the consequences, the challenge, the weight that that person may have to deal with by understanding. So you can kind of say you feel sympathy with your fingers. It's like in your whole body. But you feel empathy with your mind. You're understanding the implications of what this means for them. When you do that and you understand it, it often sets off a cascade of emotions yourself. Sometimes sympathy makes you emotionally drained and physically exhausted. Empathy can make you feel mentally exhausted, where you're running these gymnastics of thinking of all the things that they're now going to have to deal with because of this thing that happened. Someone has this problem, and now you're running gymnastics about how every different person in the family is going to feel when they arrive at dinner tomorrow, and interact with this person's problem. Okay, mental gymnastics. You're understanding the implications, and that can be exhausting in its own way, even though it's a little different than sympathy. The third emotion we're talking about is compassion. Here at Wild and Brave, we like to say that compassion has its boots on. Compassion is an emotion. In fact, it's one of the most powerful positive emotions that's been studied for its physiological benefits on people. It can impact your heart health, your gut health, really acting on your stress and your physiological response. It's amazing. But compassion is an emotion, and like all emotions, it comes with this prepackaged kind of energy, a very specific kind of energy. Compassion sees, feels, understands, and acts. Compassion exists to help us take action to alleviate suffering in what I call a sustainable way. Compassion says, what can I do? Compassion doesn't say what needs to be done for the world to come right. Compassion doesn't say, how could this be magically fixed? Looking for solutions outside of itself. Compassion says, I may not have all the solutions, but I got my boots on. What can I do? How could I alleviate this suffering in some way? That's what compassion does. And because compassion is practical, when you improve your relationship with compassion, it starts to make you feel more effective in your life, because compassion helps you put your boots on and say, okay, I may not be able to fix this. I can't unfire you from your job or uncrash your car or undiagnose you with a disease or a difficult illness. But I got my boots on. What can I do? Compassion starts with you, and it sees what it can do. Take some action to alleviate suffering in some sort of sustainable way. That's a kind of overview of those three emotions. And it may seem like we've given sympathy and empathy a hard time here, right? We kind of treated them a little bit like they're immature emotions. We want to help you grow up to become compassion, right? And the key to seeing these emotions well and valuing them is see them as a chain reaction. You actually want to move through the feeling to find the understanding so that you can seek a healthy action that can be taken to alleviate the pain. Compassion often doesn't show up without sympathy or empathy calling its name. Sometimes you need to feel the feeling of sympathy or see what is happening in your empathy in order for compassion to show up with its boots on and say, I think we can do this. They work together. Even though you don't want to just stay trapped in sympathy or empathy, they're productive pieces of the solution that can really help you convert these emotionally draining situations and relationships into energetically vibrant connections, meaningful ones. So let's look at what that means. Who wishes they could do this in their life? Who wishes that they could be faced with the pain of another person and have a sustainable way to alleviate pain and not leave drained? Who would love to have that? Most of the people I work with here at Wild and Brave care so much about the people in their lives. And often when they're tired or drained, it's because they love someone else. They love their clients or they love their family. And they're trying to make a sustainable difference in the world. Compassion is one of the keys to keeping the fuel in the tank and helping you do what you can for those around you. So let's look at what compassion means and how to have compassion in impossible circumstances. One of the thinkers instrumental in developing the compassion research I heard about through my mom, one of our researchers here. Those of you who love my mom, you can thank her for this one. And this oncologist, this cancer doctor, he, like many doctors who spend much of their time giving patients terrible news, he knows that he can't fix people's cancer. He can't tell them they have a different prognosis simply because he doesn't want them to have to feel the pain of it. And with all of the tools at his disposal, he still knows that any cancer diagnosis means struggle and difficulty, and it may result in the person losing their life. There's no softening that. So for this doctor, if he engages just in sympathy, it would be debilitating. He would be identifying with losing his health, his strength, and his future with every patient that he has to give bad news to. Empathy, the understanding, remember, empathy is big with the brain, it wants you to help you see what the implications are. Empathy would have provided this long, dark tunnel filled with thoughts like, this means he'll never see his granddaughter. This little girl's so young and she won't even make it into her 20s. She's probably never going to get to do the things that she's capable of. Empathy would look for the implications and torture him. Be very distracting, quite honestly. But he found in his research that using 45 seconds of compassion, he could drastically change people's experience. Even when he did that, he saw an impact on their body's responsiveness to cancer treatments. Let's look at what he did. He didn't change his job. He didn't leave and go learn to teach people to surf where he'd never have to give bad news. He simply learned how to give 45 seconds of compassion. He started his consultations by looking them in the eye. He'd breathe. Sometimes he'd take their hand or put a hand on a shoulder, and he'd say, we have some difficult things to discuss today, and some of the news is not very good, but I'm going to be here with you through it. I will stay to answer all of your questions, and I will make sure you have the best information we have. I won't leave until you're ready for me to. And then he'd go about his consult, explain their results, answer their questions, talk about the care they're going to receive or what needed to change, just like always. And then at the end of the consult, he'd finish up the 45 seconds and he'd say, repeating the first process, say, you know, we faced some tough information today. I know the treatment isn't what we hoped it would be, but I'm going to be here. We're going to do this together. You can reach out to me anytime. I know this is going to be hard. We're going to get through it together. 45 seconds. He didn't make him not have cancer. He didn't stay up all night researching miracle cures. He didn't try to cheer them up or minimize what they were going through. He exercised compassion. Now, most of the people in our lives who are sharing their difficult emotions with us aren't our patients, right? Most of them don't even have a terminal diagnosis. But if we were brave enough to practice 45 seconds worth of compassion, we could really change our energy output. Instead of an energy drain, which empathy and sympathy both can be, we get an energy increase when we move through them to compassion, because compassion is a positive emotion. But think back to that oncologist's approach. All right, do you see the fingerprints of sympathy and empathy on the compassionate statement he gives? Sympathy wants to say, I'm here with you. You're not alone. Empathy works to understand what it means to deal with a difficult reality. Empathy says, I see what this means for you. But compassion has its boots on, and it can tell you, the person practicing it, what to do about it. Often the thing you need to do is to take the valuable information that sympathy and empathy bring to you and use them to give compassion a place to start. Sometimes verbalizing your willingness to be with them. Hey, I'm here with you. This is going to be a difficult day. This is the first Christmas family dinner since mom died. I think it's going to be hard for all of us. We're going to be together. Verbalizing your willingness to be with them And then exercise the bravery to speak the true implications of the situation. Sometimes that's the most compassionate action you can take. Now, I wish I had more time today. We'd run through, there's so many different examples of compassion, but I do want to make sure that as you chew on this idea of compassion, that you see how when you get started with it, when you look for what you can do to alleviate someone else's misery, you are moving from a role of receiving the weight of the difficulty, and you are moving into a place of action to do something. When you do that, that is the process that helps recover your strength, to recoup the energy that has been leaking out of you if you've just been living in sympathy and empathy. Staying there too long without having compassion come in and tell you what to do about it, it will drain you dry. If you are a compassionate and loving person who hasn't been exercising your compassion, you've simply been feeling trapped, feeling the emotions, you may find that you lose your ability to care for other people, where you have to become self-protective. You say, you know, I know they're going through a hard time, but I just don't have it to give today. I don't have it to give. They're going to have to deal with themselves. When you get to that place, let it be a red flag to you that you haven't been bringing compassion to the party. You haven't found a way to exercise the feelings of sympathy and do something that allows you to release it. It's a way of showing up positively in a situation that you don't have control over. Most of the pain that our friends and loved ones and even our clients feel are pains that we cannot save them from. So when you see this around you, you need to recognize that those pains are things that you can't fix globally. But if you look down at your boots and you ask compassion, what step can we take? Do we need to see them and acknowledge them? Do we need to be brave and acknowledge the burden we see that they're carrying? Can we be kind enough to be a friend that says, this is difficult, but I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here through it. Whatever the case may be, if you can find your boots, you can do some stepping, and it can bring your energy back so you don't have to live in a place of self-protection. We hope you like this today. I think it's an important thing for us to give ourselves a little space to really improve our relationship with those three emotions. If you want to live vibrantly, let sympathy and empathy feed your compassion so that you can take action and be at peace.